Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's my pleasure to welcome to my left Superintendent George Beach of the State Police. It's actually the first press conference we've done since the superintendent has been sworn in, so it's a pleasure to be with him. To my right is Commissioner of Health, Dr. Zucker. It's actually our first press conference since he's become a married man, so really congratulations to him. First, as a warning for our upstate residents, there is a weather advisory in parts of upstate for severe weather, thunderstorms, possible hailstorms. If you're traveling in upstate New York, please take care and please consult with the weather advisors before you go out. The commissioner, the superintendent, and myself were on our way upstate, and we couldn't fly because the storms were so bad. So please be careful. The issue of the day is what they call synthetic marijuana. It's deceiving. It's not really synthetic marijuana. It is a synthetic drug compound, period, that is used to replicate or mimic THC, which is in marijuana, except these synthetic compounds are actually much more powerful and much more dangerous. They are not new. They crop up from time to time under different names. We've dealt with them over the years on a number of occasions. The synthetic marijuana that we're talking about now is called K2. It was found in New York City, in the Brooklyn area last week, approximately 130 cases where the newspaper said the people were basically acting like zombies, that the drug was that strong, that people had overdosed and were on the street and were basically incoherent. There have also been deaths that have been related to K2. So unfortunately, we've seen this before, and it's reared its ugly head once again. We said last week when we heard about it in Brooklyn, the fear was that it would spread from Brooklyn to the other boroughs, and it would spread from downstate New York to upstate New York, which is unfortunately very often the pattern. And that is exactly what has happened. It's ironic. There was a newspaper article today in an upstate publication that said, luckily, there have been no signs of K2 in upstate New York. Well, that luck is gone. Last night, an arrest was made by the state police for sale of 150 packets of K2 in Rochester. If it is now in Rochester, literally a week ago it was New York City, we would expect, although we'll try to stop it, but we would expect if it's in Rochester, you'll now start to see it spread across upstate New York. It would be in Buffalo, Syracuse, etc. So our purpose today is to inform, especially people in upstate New York, law enforcement in upstate New York, that this K2 is in upstate New York. It is very dangerous. It is very powerful. This is nothing to be trifled with. It can hurt you. It can kill you, period. Store owners who would sell this, we want to know them to know that we will be taking this very, very seriously. Sale in most municipalities is a crime to begin with. Number two, the Department of Health has the authority to close down the store. We have empowered the state liquor authority to revoke a store's liquor license, and the New York State Gaming Commission with the power to revoke the store's license to sell lottery tickets. In my opinion, if a store owner knowingly sells this drug, they should be out of business, period. And if you lose your liquor license and you lose your lottery license and the Department of Health closes your store down, you will be out of business. So store owners should not even think or contemplate getting into this line of business or this sales of this poison, because in the long run, we will catch you and we will close down the store, and it's not going to be worth it. We also want to know the upstate law enforcement, our upstate law enforcement colleagues, that this is coming. They should be aware of it. The 150 packets have different names and different colors, as you can see from the signs around me. They're deceptive. They look playful. They look harmless enough. Almost looks like a children's candy. The exact opposite is true. Could be the last chemical that you ingest if you're not lucky. Any help we can give to local law enforcement, the state police stand ready. This is an effort where the state government is fully mobilized, the state police are mobilized, the Department of Health is mobilized, the State Liquor Authority, Gaming Commission, and the State Department of Tax and Finance. So it is a coordinated, multi-pronged effort. We've been working downstate, and now we'll be working all across upstate New York. And we also need the help of parents, citizens, friends, etc. If you know someone who is playing with this drug and you care about them at all, do everything you can to stop them, because this really is dangerous, and it really could be a fatal mistake. With that, let me turn it over to Superintendent George Beach.
Good afternoon, everybody. As the governor mentioned, I'm George Beach, Superintendent of New York State Police. Synthetic drugs continue to pose a threat to the health and safety of our communities. Governor Cuomo has taken aggressive action to remove K2 from our streets and keep it out of the hands of our most vulnerable New Yorkers. From issuing emergency regulations in 2012, which prohibited the sale, manufacture, or distribution of synthetic marijuana, to expanding the list of controlled substances in 2015 to include new chemical compounds, Governor Cuomo has led the way in protecting public health. Last week, Governor Cuomo built on these efforts once again by announcing a comprehensive statewide enforcement effort. As part of these actions, the state police, the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, and the State Department of Health are taking part in a series of sweeps focusing on stores and bodegas suspected of selling the drug. This weekend in Rochester, we seized more than 150 packets of K2 and charged the owner of the Loomis and Joseph Mart, located at 718 Joseph Avenue in the city of Rochester. Samples of those seized products in Rochester were analyzed by the Department of Health's Wadsworth Center Laboratory in Albany and found to contain illicit compounds. The defendant was charged with an unclassified misdemeanor for the unlawful possession of synthetic cannabinoids and a violation of the Department of Health's regulations banning the possession of synthetic drugs. He was also charged with felony tax law violations. The continued growth of synthetic marijuana is particularly troubling for law enforcement. These drugs are dangerous. With names like Scooby Snacks, Joker, and Green Giant, flashy, colorful packaging, and flavors like apple or blueberry, these products may look harmless. But like many illegal drugs, they are not tested for safety. Oftentimes, the effects of the drugs are highly unpredictable and can be severely debilitating. As this operation progresses, we will continue to crack down on those who flout the law and send a strong message across the state that the sale of these illegal substances will not be tolerated. At the governor's direction, we will be deploying additional units across the state to combat this epidemic. The state police is committed to working with our state, federal, and local law enforcement partners to keep these hazardous substances out of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Superintendent and the state police have their hands full now. We're in the midst of a crackdown on heroin, which is also a major problem all across the state, especially in upstate New York. And this synthetic marijuana problem now is compounding the problem with heroin. So again, the cooperation of all local law enforcement, that they are on notice, and any way the state police can help, please contact them. Now let me turn it over to Commissioner Howard Zucker. Once again, That big smile, because now he's a married man.
Thank you, Governor. Synthetic cannabinoid is a drug that the state has been battling for the last couple of years. It's a growing problem. It comes with many names. We've heard about spice, K2, and dozens of other names. K2 is made of a dried plant material that is sprayed with chemicals. These chemicals are often from China, and they change all the time. They're marketed as something that mimics the effect of THC, and THC is the active ingredient in marijuana, a tetrahydrocannabinoid, which gives the psychotropic effects of marijuana. But in K2, it could be as much as 100 times as potent. The big problem this has been a big problem in New York City and is growing in the state, as the governor has mentioned. In 2015, we had over 2,000 admissions for synthetic cannabinoids, approximately half in the city and half in the rest of the state. Let me share with you a couple of the signs and symptoms that we see. It causes problems with the heart and blood vessels. It causes problems with the nervous system and also with other organ systems as well. So what does that exactly mean? Is that you could see people with elevated blood pressure, you could see people who are very combative or have hallucinations, but then on the other side, you can also see people who are very somnolent or even comatose, which is what we saw this past week. And as the governor mentioned, you can also die from K2 and the other synthetic cannabinoids. What we have seen is that the age that this has usually been found in are people who are in their 20s, early to mid-20s, but we've seen it in teenagers and as well as those into their late 40s. Some have asked if there's an antidote to this. There is no antidote to it. So what can one do? If you see someone or relative, a friend of someone who's using K2 and you're concerned, you can call 911. Also for information, you can call the Poison Control Center. As with many health topics, the key thing here really is prevention. And so what we need to do is we need to stop the sales and we need to stop users from using this. Anything for sale in the state that compromises the health of New Yorkers is something that demands immediate and aggressive action. This is another case for that. Last week, the governor announced the new enforcement efforts to crack down, as you've heard, and the Department of Health's Wadsworth lab has detected the K2 that was seized and one of those dangerous chemicals that was added to the list in 2015. And in addition to enforcement, our Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services is undertaking a massive media awareness and educational campaign about the dangers of K2, using technology to make the resources more easily available. And OASIS is working with DCJS to purchase drug detection machines to assist police statewide in identifying substances like K2 in real time to tackle this as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, not just for your comments today, but for all the good work of the Department of Health, which is an integral part of this multi-state, multi-agency effort. At this time, we are trying to work it out with the technology where we can actually take questions. I think there's going to be a couple of minutes before that is operational, or 5 or 10 minutes. So we'll take a 5-minute break, at which time Commissioner Zucker and the superintendent will be available to answer any technical questions that anyone might have. Thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you.